The invasion begins. The sun was setting over the quiet town, casting long shadows over the houses as people began to return to their homes. It was an ordinary evening, just like any other. No one knew that the Earth was on the verge of an event that would change everything. The peaceful sky above the world would soon be filled with foreign ships, and the invasion of Earth would begin. High above in the stars, a powerful alien fleet hovered silently in space, watching Earth through the darkness. The aliens, a race that had conquered countless worlds, had decided that it was time to add Earth to their growing empire. They had observed humanity for years, watching from the shadows as humans grew and built their civilizations. To them, humanity was weak, primitive, and unorganized, unable to stand against the might of their advanced technology. The aliens believed they were unstoppable. With their powerful ships, superior weapons, and knowledge far beyond anything humans could imagine, they knew it was only a matter of time before the Earth would bow to their will. The decision was made. The invasion was about to begin. Down below, the world was unaware of the threat. People went about their daily lives, never suspecting that something terrible was on the horizon. In the streets, children played, and adults finished their workday, all blissfully unaware that the fate of their world was about to be sealed. No one saw the dark shadows creeping across the sky, invisible to the naked eye. The alien ships began to descend, moving slowly at first, then picking up speed. They arrived over major cities, their huge, intimidating silhouettes blocking out the stars as they hovered ominously in place. The cities below were now within their reach. The Earth had no idea what was coming. Inside one of the largest ships, the alien commander stood before a vast window, looking out at the planet below. His cold, calculating eyes scanned Earth's surface, and he spoke to his crew in a low, confident voice. "This world is ours. We will conquer it in the name of the Empire. These humans are nothing." His words echoed through the command center, where his officers nodded in agreement. The alien race had dealt with countless worlds, and each time their enemies had been weak, unable to resist their superior force. The humans, they believed, would be no different. But there was something the aliens didn't know, something they had overlooked in their cold calculations. On Earth, a group of humans had been preparing for this day, although they didn't fully understand what was coming. Among them was a Marine, an experienced soldier who had seen the worst of humanity's wars. He wasn't just any soldier, though. He had been trained for something much bigger than any battle on Earth. As the aliens began their descent, the Marine sat alone in a small, dimly lit room, staring at a map of the world. His thoughts were focused, his mind racing through strategies he had learned over the years. He had heard rumors, whispers of a possible invasion, but he had never truly believed it. Now, as the alien ships appeared in the sky, those rumors became a terrifying reality. The Marine stood up, his boots clanging against the concrete floor. He knew what he had to do. He had to prepare. The aliens might have thought they were powerful, but they didn't understand the human spirit, the will to fight, to survive. They didn't know that humanity had been through far worse than they could ever imagine. He grabbed his gear and walked toward the door, ready to face whatever the aliens had to throw at him. The fate of the Earth rested in the hands of a few humans like him. They may have been unprepared, but they were not weak. They would fight back. The air outside was thick with tension, the sounds of sirens and distant voices filling the air. People were beginning to notice the strange ships in the sky, the sudden change in the atmosphere. Panic was spreading through the streets as the realization hit. The aliens had arrived, and they weren't here to make friends. But the Marine wasn't afraid. He knew what needed to be done. He wasn't just fighting for survival. He was fighting for something much bigger, the freedom of Earth, the freedom of humanity. And he would do whatever it took to stop the aliens from taking control. The invasion had begun. The fate of the world rested on the courage of people like him. It would be a battle unlike anything Earth had ever seen, and the aliens, for all their strength and advanced technology, were about to learn just how wrong they were about humanity. The Marine took a deep breath and stepped into the night. The war for Earth had just begun, and he was ready. The alien fleet loomed high in the sky, casting an eerie shadow over the Earth below. With each passing minute, the tension in the air grew heavier. Cities across the world were now on alert, as the strange, imposing ships remained hovering above. The humans, who had lived their lives with no knowledge of an impending invasion, now found themselves thrust into a nightmare. The world's governments scrambled to respond, but they were no match for the alien technology that now surrounded them. The streets were filled with chaos as people looked up in fear, trying to comprehend what was happening. It seemed like a dream, a bad dream, but the truth was undeniable. From within the massive alien ship, Commander Calthor watched the unfolding events on Earth. His face remained cold and emotionless as he surveyed the planet below. His species had conquered countless worlds, each one bowing to their might. Yet, as he looked at Earth, he felt something unfamiliar, a sense of impatience. "This is taking too long," Calthor muttered to himself, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why are they not surrendering?" His officers, standing behind him, exchanged uneasy glances. They had expected the humans to panic, to crumble under the weight of their superior firepower. But what they saw was far different. People on the ground were not begging for mercy. Instead, there was resistance, small at first, but noticeable. Military units were assembling. Governments were making decisions. Something was stirring within the human race, something the aliens had not anticipated. On the ground, the Marine was preparing himself. His hands were steady as he checked his gear one last time. He had trained for this moment, but nothing could prepare him for the scale of what was happening. His mind raced with strategy, with the knowledge that every decision he made now would have consequences for the survival of Earth. As the first shots were fired from the alien ships, humanity fought back, not in a disorganized panic, but with coordinated precision. Governments may have been scrambling, but their military forces were not entirely unprepared. Earth had seen war before, and even though it had been centuries since the last great conflict, the knowledge, the will to fight, still remained. The Marine stood in a small military base, watching the alien ships through the window. They were firing beams of energy down on the cities below, but their attacks were slow, methodical. They were not yet focused on Earth's full defense. It was a mistake. They underestimated the human ability to adapt, to survive, to fight. The Marine's heart raced, but his mind remained calm. He knew that if they were to have any hope of pushing the aliens back, they needed to strike quickly, before the aliens could fully deploy their forces. He gathered his squadron and gave them a simple command. We hit them hard and fast. We take out their weapons systems, and we do it now. They were the first line of defense. They were humanity's first chance at survival. Meanwhile, the alien commander, Calthor, continued to watch Earth with growing irritation. Why are they resisting? These creatures are nothing. Why do they fight? The aliens' belief in their own invincibility was one of their greatest weaknesses. They did not understand the power of the human spirit. To them, humanity was just another primitive species, easily crushed under the weight of their superior technology. They had no concept of the fierce will to survive that humans possessed. Calthor's mind raced. The humans had proven more resilient than he anticipated, and that made him uneasy. As the alien fleet unleashed wave after wave of attacks, they did so with confidence. Yet the humans kept fighting back, their military units slowly regrouping in hidden underground bases, working together to launch a series of counterattacks. Calthor's officers began to report strange, unexplainable data. Earth's defenses weren't falling as expected. The attacks from the humans were not only defensive, they were organized. The humans, despite their primitive weapons, were holding their own. In some cases, they were even starting to gain ground. The Marine knew this was only the beginning. As the first wave of attacks subsided, he gathered with his fellow soldiers to plan the next phase. They were up against the most advanced technology in the galaxy, yet they fought with everything they had. They would never give up. Back on the alien ship, Calthor's frustration grew. There must be a reason they are resisting so fiercely. What do these creatures have that we don't understand? As the alien fleet continued its assault, the stakes grew higher. It was no longer just about victory for the invaders. It was about survival for the aliens themselves. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. The Marine and his comrades were only one small part of the defense, but they were humanity's first line of hope, standing firm in the face of overwhelming odds. The aliens might have underestimated humanity's strength, but now they were learning the hard truth. Humans would fight, no matter what. The battle for Earth had just begun, and the aliens had made their first fatal mistake. They had underestimated the very species they thought was weak, and that mistake would cost them dearly. The alien invasion was not the swift, unchallenged victory the invaders had anticipated. It was becoming clear that humanity was far more resilient than Calthor had imagined. Even as Earth's cities burned and the skies darkened under the weight of the alien ships, the humans did not fold. They fought, fiercely, strategically, and with a sense of unity that the aliens couldn't comprehend. The Marine stood in the midst of the chaos, his boots firmly planted on the ground. The battlefield had transformed into a nightmare, but his resolve remained unshaken. The alien technology that had once seemed so overwhelming was no longer the only factor at play. The humans had something the aliens couldn't match: determination. "We're not just defending our homes, we're defending our future," the Marine said, his voice calm despite the chaos around him. His words weren't just for his squad. They were for all of humanity. They were fighting not just for survival, but for a future that had been threatened in the blink of an eye. As they prepared for the next wave of alien attacks, the Marine glanced at his team. They were focused, ready. They had made it through the first wave of attacks, but they knew that this next phase would be more intense. The aliens had underestimated them once, but they wouldn't make that mistake again. The human soldiers were preparing for a fight that would change everything. Meanwhile, the alien fleet was growing impatient. Calthor's frustration had reached new heights. Despite the overwhelming power of their ships, despite the advanced weaponry at their disposal, they couldn't seem to break through humanity's defenses. The aliens had expected humans to surrender quickly, to fall under the weight of their might. But instead, they were finding themselves trapped in a war of attrition. And the longer it dragged on, the more their confidence began to crack. Calthor paced back and forth, his eyes fixed on the reports streaming in from his officers. The data didn't make sense. The humans were adapting faster than expected. Their strategies were evolving, their tactics becoming more sophisticated with each passing moment. The Marines on the ground weren't just defending. They were striking back, taking down key alien weapons systems and disrupting communication lines. It was no longer just a war for survival. It was a war for victory. One of Calthor's lieutenants, a young officer named Threx, approached him cautiously. "Commander, we need to reconsider our strategy. These humans are proving to be more formidable than we anticipated." Calthor shot him a sharp look, his patience wearing thin. "What are you suggesting, Threx? We cannot afford to lose to these creatures. We've conquered hundreds of worlds. We will not lose to these puny beings." Threx hesitated, his voice barely a whisper. "But they are not like any species we've encountered before. They're relentless. They have an unyielding spirit. If we do not adjust our tactics, we could lose everything." Calthor's cold eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. He had fought many battles in his long career, but none quite like this. He had always relied on superior firepower to win, but humanity's greatest strength lay not in their technology, but in their willpower. And that was something the aliens had not accounted for. Back on Earth, the human forces were taking advantage of the aliens' uncertainty. The initial shock of the invasion had passed, and now humanity was rallying. The world's militaries had put aside their differences, and nations that had once been divided now stood together, united by the common goal of repelling the invaders. The Marine led a team of soldiers into an abandoned military base, which had been retrofitted with experimental weapons designed to counter alien technology. The base had once been a high-tech facility for weapons development, but now it was their last hope. Inside, they found the cutting-edge weapons they needed to turn the tide of the war. But it wasn't just the weapons that mattered, it was the courage behind them. They quickly readied the weapons and began their next mission, a strike against one of the aliens' primary energy sources. If they could take that down, it would cripple the alien fleet and give humanity a fighting chance. As the team advanced through the desolate streets, the Marine couldn't help but feel the weight of the situation. The world was counting on them. The alien ships above seemed to grow larger by the hour, their presence suffocating. But the humans had one thing the aliens didn't: the desire to protect their world, their families, their way of life. "This is it," the Marine said, his voice steady but urgent. "We take this shot, and we show them they've made a mistake." The team moved swiftly, positioning the weapon in place. As the countdown began, the Marine's thoughts raced. He couldn't help but think about his family, his home. Everything he had ever known was on the line. As the final moments ticked away, the alien fleet above remained unaware of the deadly strike humanity was preparing. The Marine's pulse quickened. This was their chance, the chance to change the course of the war. The countdown reached 0. A brilliant flash of light erupted from the base, a beam of energy that tore through the sky, striking one of the alien ships directly. The explosion was deafening, the shockwave rattling the earth beneath their feet. The first alien ship in their fleet was down. It was a small victory, but it was enough. It was proof the humans could fight back, that they could win. As the alien fleet began to respond to the attack, Calthor watched in shock as the reports came in. One of their ships had been destroyed. The humans had struck first. They had defied everything he believed to be true. And that was when he realized the war had truly begun. The destruction of the alien ship sent shockwaves through both the human and alien ranks. The blast was loud enough to be heard even by the soldiers in the farthest reaches of Earth's defenses. The humans had successfully taken down one of the invaders' pride and joys, and the aliens were reeling. The first signs of vulnerability had been exposed. Calthor, standing on the bridge of his flagship, gripped the armrest of his chair tightly. His knuckles whitened. He had never imagined such a turn of events. A single human force, underestimating the sheer might of the alien fleet, had delivered a blow that threatened to undo months of planning and preparation. His mind raced as he considered their next steps. "What is the status of the other ships?" Calthor demanded, his voice cold and calculating. "The humans, they're not retreating, sir. They've taken this moment as a rallying point. They're using the momentum to launch counterattacks. They've already begun striking at our secondary energy sources," the officer reported, voice trembling. Calthor's eyes narrowed. It was no longer about the firepower or the size of the fleet. The humans had something else. Their ingenuity, their drive. It was a force that seemed unstoppable, a driving force that the alien invaders could not anticipate. Calthor realized something crucial. This was no longer about annihilation. The war was now about survival. Meanwhile, the human forces were organizing for the next phase of their resistance. They had shown that they could inflict damage, but there was more to be done. The defeat of a single alien ship was a victory, but it was just the beginning. The world was still under attack, and time was not on their side. Sergeant Miles, the Marine who had led the strike against the alien ship, knew that the real battle was about to unfold. That first victory, exhilarating as it was, had also raised the stakes. The alien invaders would not stand idly by while their forces were whittled down. They would retaliate, fiercely. "I know what's coming," Miles said to his team as they prepared for the next mission. "They're going to throw everything at us. But we've shown them we're not as weak as they thought." The soldiers gathered in the war room, strategizing their next move. The tension in the air was palpable. Everyone understood the significance of what was about to happen. This was no longer just a fight for survival. It was a fight for the very future of Earth. They would target the aliens' primary communication hub, a vulnerable point in their strategy. Without it, the alien forces would be disorganized, and their ability to coordinate the invasion would be severely hampered. But the risks were immense. The communication hub was heavily guarded, and even the smallest mistake could cost them dearly. "The longer we wait, the more they reinforce," said Lieutenant Harper, scanning the latest intelligence reports. "We strike now, before they can regroup. We have to hit them where it hurts." Miles agreed, nodding grimly. "Let's move out." As the team advanced toward their target, the human soldiers couldn't help but notice a change in the atmosphere. There was a certain urgency now, a sense that every moment mattered more than ever before. And yet, despite the chaos of war and the overwhelming forces of the aliens, there was a growing sense of unity among the humans. It wasn't just their military strategies that had changed, it was their mindset. They were no longer just defending their world. They were fighting for their right to exist, for the future of every living thing on Earth. As the team moved deeper into alien territory, they faced a mixture of emotions. Fear was there, but it was tempered with a newfound sense of resolve. Every soldier knew the risks, but they also understood the importance of the mission. They were no longer fighting just for themselves. They were fighting for the generations that would come after them, for their children, their families, their planet. The alien forces were preparing for an attack on the human stronghold. They knew that their vulnerability had been exposed, and they were planning their revenge. Calther and his officers scrambled to reorganize their forces and neutralize the humans' unexpected success. But the aliens' overconfidence had been shattered. The once unassailable alien fleet now had to contend with a human force they had completely underestimated. Back on Earth, the human resistance had grown. The initial shock of the invasion had worn off, and now every person, every soldier, was working in unison. Cities that had once been chaotic and disorganized now stood strong, with defenses rising up where there had once been only fear. As the day of the next battle approached, Miles looked out at the horizon, where the alien ships loomed ominously overhead. He knew that humanity had taken the first step. The road ahead would be long, and the cost would be high. But the invaders now knew that Earth would not fall without a fight. And that, he thought grimly, was the greatest weapon they had. "We've got one chance," Miles muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. "Let's make it count." The night before the next mission, the human resistance leaders gathered around a war table, the flickering light of a single lamp casting shadows on their faces. Maps of the alien strongholds were spread across the table, dotted with markers indicating the locations of both human forces and the invading alien fleet. Tension filled the air as the room fell into silence. Tomorrow would be a pivotal day, and no one was under any illusion about the stakes. Sergeant Miles, still nursing his injuries from the previous battle, stood at the head of the table. His usually calm demeanor had shifted to something more intense. The last few days had shown that the aliens were not just technologically advanced. They were ruthless. The first victory had been a fluke, a moment of surprise. This time, however, Miles and his team would need every ounce of preparation, every strategy, and every weapon at their disposal to have a chance at survival. "The aliens won't let us get close to their communication hub again," Miles said, his voice steady, but carrying the weight of someone who had seen too much. "They'll be expecting us. We need to blindside them, catch them off guard." Lieutenant Harper leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the map. "We've got limited options. We've hit them on the outskirts, but now we need to get inside their defenses. This time, we'll need help. We can't do it alone." "We've got allies," Colonel Vargas, the leader of a separate human faction, spoke up. "They might be scattered across the world, but we've managed to pull together a decent amount of resources. We'll need to coordinate with every resistance group in the area." "Agreed," Miles nodded. The goal is simple. We strike hard, we strike fast, and we don't stop until the aliens realize that Earth is not their playground anymore. The plan was risky. In order to access the alien communication hub, they would need to infiltrate the heavily fortified core of the alien base, a place where the invaders' best soldiers and technology were concentrated. But the resistance had learned from their previous encounter. The aliens might have superior firepower, but humans had something else: determination, adaptability, and the willingness to do whatever it took to protect their home. At dawn, the resistance forces mobilized. Miles, Harper, and their squad geared up, ready for their mission. They would be joined by a variety of other groups, including former military personnel, scientists, and even civilians who had taken up arms. It wasn't just soldiers anymore. The entire world had come together in this desperate fight. The streets that once felt safe now looked like war zones. The sound of boots marching echoed through empty alleyways as the various resistance units moved toward their target. The alien ships hovered ominously above the city, their enormous size casting long shadows across the landscape. They were a reminder that the battle was far from over, but the humans were not deterred. The first part of the mission was to breach the outer perimeter of the alien base. It wasn't easy. The alien defenses had been fortified after the humans' previous victories. Automated turrets, laser fences, and invisible force fields created a gauntlet that the resistance forces had to navigate. Each step was dangerous, each moment filled with uncertainty. As they advanced, the humans encountered resistance. Alien drones and soldiers patrolled the outer areas, their weapons blazing with energy. But the humans were not caught off guard. Their tactics were unconventional, and they used the environment to their advantage. The alleys, abandoned buildings, and even sewers were used as cover as they made their way toward the heart of the alien stronghold. Move fast. They'll be reinforcing the position any minute now. Miles barked as he led the way, ducking behind a crumbling wall as an alien drone passed overhead. The team pressed forward, their every move calculated and precise. It was a delicate balance. If they moved too quickly, they would attract too much attention. But if they moved too slowly, they risked being spotted before they reached their goal. Just as they neared the alien base's entrance, a loud rumble echoed through the streets. The ground shook beneath their feet, and Miles' heart skipped a beat. The aliens were deploying reinforcements, sending their full force into the city. The humans were on the clock. "There's no turning back now," Lieutenant Harper said, her voice calm but determined. She scanned the area, checking for any signs of alien movement. "We need to make it inside before they lock this place down completely." The final stretch to the communication hub was the most perilous. Alien soldiers were now on full alert, their eyes scanning the area for any signs of human movement. But the resistance was relentless. As they reached the entrance to the base, the last line of defense fell. A few well-placed explosives cleared the way, and the humans surged forward. "Get inside," Miles shouted as he kicked open the door to the alien compound. The team stormed in, weapons raised, ready for whatever came next. Inside the alien base, the air was thick with the tension of an impending showdown. The humans had made it this far, but the real challenge was still ahead. The communication hub lay deep within the heart of the complex. It was the brain of the entire alien operation on Earth. If they could take it down, they would cripple the invaders' ability to coordinate their attacks. But just as they reached the hub, they were confronted by an unexpected sight. The room was not empty. A group of alien officers stood around a console, their weapons drawn. The humans were outnumbered. "This is it," Miles muttered under his breath. "We finish this now, or Earth falls." The battle for the communication hub had begun. The humans were determined, but the aliens would fight to the bitter end to maintain their control over Earth. The tension in the room was unbearable. The alien officers, tall and imposing with their sleek, armor-clad bodies, glared down at the humans who had infiltrated their lair. Their weapons were advanced, glowing energy rifles capable of reducing any living creature to ash with a single shot. But the humans had something that no alien weapon could account for: heart, ingenuity, and an unyielding desire to protect their home. Sergeant Miles, his face streaked with dirt and sweat, stood at the forefront of the group. His breath was steady, though his pulse raced with adrenaline. This was the moment. If they could take control of the communication hub, the aliens would be left in disarray, unable to coordinate their forces. But the risk was monumental. The enemy had the high ground and the advantage of superior technology. "They won't give up their position without a fight," Miles said, his voice a low growl as he scanned the room. He motioned to his team. "We fight for Earth." Lieutenant Harper, a seasoned veteran with a sharp mind and an unwavering will, nodded. "Take out their commanders. We disrupt their chain of command, and the rest will follow." With that, the battle began. The first shot came from the alien officers, their weapons firing with deadly precision. The bright blue beams of energy sliced through the air, narrowly missing the humans as they dove behind cover. The entire room was a blur of movement, gunfire, and the shrill whine of alien technology. The humans weren't daunted. They knew the aliens had advanced weapons, but they also knew the humans' adaptability made them unpredictable. Miles fired back, his shots hitting their marks with surprising accuracy despite the chaos of the battle. He had no choice but to trust his training and instincts. Harper moved with lethal grace, taking down one of the alien officers with a well-placed shot to the chest. Her rifle cracked the air, the beam flashing through the dimly lit room as the alien collapsed to the floor. One down, but there were still more, and they weren't going to make this easy. Another alien officer lunged at Miles, its long, clawed hand reaching out to grab him. Without hesitation, Miles rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding the attack, and swung his rifle in a swift arc. The weapon collided with the alien's side, sending it stumbling back. Miles didn't wait. He fired two quick shots, both landing with pinpoint accuracy, and the alien officer fell to the ground, motionless. But just as it seemed the tide was turning, the room filled with an eerie, shrill sound. A low, pulsating hum echoed through the walls, and suddenly, the air seemed to thicken, crackling with energy. The remaining aliens had activated a force field, a last-ditch effort to protect the heart of their operation. "No," Harper shouted, her voice tinged with frustration. "We need to disable it. We can't let them call for reinforcements." The force field was impenetrable, but it was also a sign of desperation. The aliens were afraid. They knew the humans were capable of breaking through their defenses, and they were doing everything they could to prevent it. Miles' mind raced as he scanned the room for a solution. Then he saw it, a console, tucked away behind a large pillar, half hidden by the chaos. It wasn't much, but it was the only option. If he could get to that console, he might be able to disable the force field and give the humans the edge they needed. "Harper, cover me," Miles shouted, already sprinting toward the console. Harper didn't hesitate. She took up position, her rifle aimed at the remaining alien officers. With steady hands, she fired, taking down another officer with a precise shot to the head. The remaining aliens were becoming disoriented, their communications disrupted by the loss of their leaders. It was the opening the humans needed. Miles reached the console, diving behind a large metal structure for cover. His fingers flew across the control panel, tapping in a series of commands. Sweat trickled down his forehead as he worked quickly, knowing that every second counted. The force field was still active, but he could feel the power source flickering. He was getting closer. Come on," he muttered under his breath, punching in the final sequence. Suddenly, the room flashed brightly. The force field sparked and crackled, and then, with a deafening hum, it collapsed. The sudden silence that followed felt deafening. The aliens' advantage was gone. "Now," Miles shouted, "everyone, move in." Harper and the rest of the resistance forces surged forward, charging the remaining alien officers who were now exposed and vulnerable. The final firefight was brutal but short. With their commanders fallen and their force field disabled, the remaining aliens were no match for the relentless drive of the human forces. One by one, the alien officers were taken down, and the resistance had secured control of the room. Miles stood over the now defeated alien officers, his chest heaving with exhaustion, but his eyes burned with determination. They had won. They had broken the aliens' stranglehold on Earth's communication systems. The humans had taken the heart of the alien operation, but the war was far from over. The victory here would send shockwaves through the alien fleet, but they would be back, stronger and more determined than ever. However, for the first time in the conflict, the humans held the upper hand. They had proven that they were not helpless. They were fighters, willing to do whatever it took to defend their home. As the resistance forces regrouped, Miles took a deep breath. He had made a promise to protect Earth, and he would keep it. The fight for humanity's survival was only just beginning. The dust settled in the now silent control room. The battle was over for now. The humans, battered but victorious, stood among the wreckage of their fallen enemies. Alien officers lay strewn across the floor, their bodies twisted and broken, a grim testament to the humans' relentless will to survive. The tension in the air was palpable, but amidst the chaos, there was a glimmer of hope. Earth had held its ground. Sergeant Miles wiped the sweat from his brow, his eyes scanning the room as he took in the aftermath. His muscles ached from the intense combat, but there was no time to rest. Not yet. The enemy may have been temporarily disabled, but they had only scratched the surface of the alien invasion. Is everyone accounted for? Miles called out to his team. Harper, her face grim but determined, gave a sharp nod. All here, Sergeant, but we're not out of the woods yet. We've just taken one base. There's still the entire fleet to deal with. Miles acknowledged her with a solemn nod. I know, but this is a win, and we can't let them take this from us. He turned to the others, his voice strong but filled with urgency. We need to send a message. The rest of the fleet will come, but we'll be ready. They have no idea what they're up against. As the humans began securing the area and tending to their wounded, Lieutenant Harper approached Miles, a worried expression on her face. Sergeant, there's something you need to see. She handed him a data pad, her fingers trembling slightly as she tapped the screen. The images that flickered to life on the display were unsettling. Alien warships, massive and heavily armed, descending upon Earth. Miles studied the images, his heart sinking. The aliens had launched their full-scale invasion. This wasn't just a small skirmish, it was the beginning of the end. But even in the face of such overwhelming odds, Miles felt a surge of pride. These humans, his team, had proven something tonight. They weren't just survivors. They were warriors. We need to get back to Earth, Miles said, the gravity of the situation weighing heavily on him. We'll rally the forces, and we'll show them what we're made of. We won't let Earth fall. Not today. Not ever. With the communication systems in their control, the humans quickly sent out a distress signal to the rest of Earth's military forces. The message was simple, yet powerful. We've held our ground. Earth is not defenseless. The days that followed were filled with preparations. The humans fortified their positions, rearmed, and reorganized their ranks. Word spread quickly, and soon, Earth's armies were mobilizing, uniting in the face of a common enemy. The alien fleet was enormous, but Earth's resolve was even greater. The enemy might have had superior technology, but the humans had something far more dangerous: their ingenuity, their unity, and their fierce love for their planet. The alien invaders had underestimated humanity, and now they would learn that mistake the hard way. As the final battle loomed on the horizon, Miles stood with his team, watching the sky grow darker as more alien warships appeared, blocking out the stars. The countdown had begun. This was no longer just a fight for survival. It was a fight for the future of Earth. We've come a long way, Harper said quietly, her voice steady. But it's not over yet. No, Miles agreed, his gaze locked on the sky. It's just beginning. With that, the humans prepared for their final stand. The battle for Earth's freedom was about to reach its most critical moment. The alien invaders had no idea what they were about to face. And as the first shots were fired, Miles knew one thing for certain. Earth would not fall without a fight. The aliens might have thought they could crush humanity, but they were about to find out just how wrong they were. The human spirit, unbroken, unyielding, and defiant, was about to make its final statement to the stars. And the aliens would soon regret ever thinking that humans were weak. The fate of Earth hung in the balance.